Software propaganda is something that can be very difficult to sort through, but how exactly do we sift through that? That's what I want to talk about here today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. And I'm here with a couple colleagues here at a conference, and we go to vendor conferences, the three of us and others on our team at Third Stage. We go to these conferences to learn more about software vendors and innovations and things that are happening in the marketplace. But oftentimes, inevitably, what happens is you get the sales and marketing spin. And so the question we want to unpack here today is how do we sift through sales and marketing propaganda and messaging and make sense of it all? So joining me for this conversation is Bonnie, who is the CEO of Raven Intel. Bonnie, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
John Reed, the co-founder of Diginomica. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
This
Good
is
to
really
see you in person.
Yeah, great to see you in person. You and I have known each other for a long time, never met in person. Yep. We've done podcasts separately, the three of us. We've hovered in the same spheres, but this is our first time sitting together in person having a conversation.
Indeed.
So I want to start with you, John. You and I are the cynics in this conversation, I would say. I think it's fair to say that we're more cynical than Bonnie.
Help us, Bonnie.
Yeah, so Bonnie's going to be here to keep us in check.
Off the edge. Yeah.
That's right.
So you and I recently did a podcast on your podcast, actually, which is a very good podcast, and I highly recommend it. You were asking me, and we were talking about vendor propaganda, which is timely, given that we're all at a conference here where we get a lot of vendor propaganda, for lack of a better word. So tell us about that. What's your experience been over 25 years of doing this in this space?
Increasingly frustrated, I guess you could say, and I'm not sure if that's a sign of my cynicism or if things are kind of getting worse. And look, I mean, I think I'm fascinated by this topic because I think in the past we had some really questionable value propositions in recent years, things like blockchain and metaverse, and things that really felt like, does this really matter to customers? And I think all of us have that in common with our different business models on this little gathering today, is that we want to matter to customers and we want to give customers stuff that matters, right?
Right.
But I think where vendors are kind of like need to adjust for this AI era is I think customers are relatively interested in this stuff and they want to use it. So I think we can tone down the sales pitches now and get real about what's really possible, what the obstacles are, what the pros and cons are. And unfortunately, that's really been kind of a universal struggle. And, so what's interesting about in the case of Oracle, where I have seen some of that happen this week, but I would like to see a lot more of it. And, because I actually think Oracle is one of the companies that's executing rather well on a lot of this stuff, but we don't need to sell it now. We need to kind of have some real conversations. So that's kind of why I'm here, is to have those.
Yeah, and dig deeper. And I heard you in a session yesterday with Evan Goldberg, the CEO of Oracle NetSuite. You were asking, hey, I want some real use cases of how customers are actually using AI and how you're actually seeing AI built into the product. And those are the conversations I think more customers need to have.
Yeah, and I wouldn't chase that down because my next Diginomica piece, which should be out hopefully by the time this video is out, is sort of the gap. How much of a gap is there between what customers think about AI and what Oracle has to say about AI? And, it's an interesting conversation. And in fact, I don't think the gap is all that big in a lot of ways, but the questions and issues that need to be dealt with are really, really important and have to do with things like, of course, data privacy is a big one. What's ready now, what's coming, how do I get started? How do I justify this from a cost perspective? These are really important conversations, and so that's the ones that I'm trying to foster, but it would be really awesome for future events, the more we can just have these openly instead of having them more, a little bit, I guess you could say, on the margins more than I would like.
Yeah.
So, and that's part of, I write a lot about creative event design, and I feel like when we kind of got post-pandemic, vendors kind of wanted to go back to how it was before, but the thing is, it's not the way it was before. And a lot of customers, they can't send their whole teams to conferences for budgetary reasons and stuff like that. And I'm just 100% convinced that the customers don't travel to these events to sit on their butts and keynotes all day long. They just don't.
Yeah.
Now, Oracle does a better job than some vendors of keeping those keynotes kind of concise. You can pick and choose, so that's good. But in general, I think we need to really rethink why we come together and what we're trying to get out of it.
Yeah.
And I know that's not a popular message, and I probably won't be invited back, but look, this has been a great show this week. It's just I see room for improvement with all these shows. I'm not trying to pick on Oracle. It's just we're here at an Oracle show.
Yeah, so we happen to be at Cloud World, and I understand what you're saying. And so Bonnie, John and I are here. We're the grumpy old men in the room complaining about our feelings and the way things used to be and all that good stuff. You're the objective one here. Your company collects intel and actually data on software vendors, some of their partners, and that sort of thing. First of all, tell us about Raven Intel for those that don't know.
Yeah, so Raven Intel is a peer review site for enterprise software consulting and implementation. And so the lens that I have by that I come to any show like Oracle Cloud World is what is the effort to get the software live, and what is the experience of customers going through implementing an Oracle Fusion application like HCM or supply chain management, and who are the partners who are really delivering the best outcomes for clients. And as John mentioned, what is really important to customers as they're going through a buying process. I mean, they're investing no small amount in these applications, both in time and money, resources. Their own careers are on the line when they make a decision about this. And what I really want to do, and what my company Raven Intel wants to do, is help clients really understand the reality of what is it that customers experience taking these products live. They look amazing. These demos that we've saw this week with AI and some of the new enhancements to applications and Redwood, and all of these look great. But how do we take like what we saw in a demo and what customers can dream about and put that into reality? That's where I think we help to come in and provide the partners that are actually making those realities and dreams come true. So all of this to say that is what I look at these shows, is to evaluate the many keynotes that we have gone through, and to say, okay, how do we balance the aspirational with the actual customer experience? And I think this week has been really neat to see companies like DHL and Uber and Caesars and MGM actually get up on stage and have the success stories to illustrate what these keynotes are actually delivering in reality. So
yeah. So when you look at the data that you collect, and I know this is a tough question because it probably varies by product, by partner, and all that stuff. Are there general trends you're seeing that either support or refute what John's concerned about, which is we're seeing all this great stuff, we're getting all this great messaging from the vendors, it's cool product innovation, cool roadmap type stuff, but where are the customers? And so is there any data that's, or trends in the data that you're seeing that would paint a picture for that?
Yeah, I think it always takes longer and is more expensive than customers bank for, right? Mm-hmm. Or have an expectation for in the outset. That doesn't mean that they're not satisfied or that the tools aren't good. It just takes longer than everybody thinks for a myriad of reasons, and costs more money. So, our rule of thumb is always bank on about 1.5 times what you think you're going to spend and the time that it's going to take. In general, when we see reviews about implementation, even the best ones, they usually go over time, over budget, because lo and behold, they had an internal team change that happened, or there was something that happened like COVID that put a wrench in their best laid plans. And so I would say, really sort of putting that buffer in from the outset is good advice. So that's a trend. I think other trends are best projects are the ones that have solid customer references and use cases that they've investigated before making a decision. And those that do their homework and due diligence ahead of time end up with the best results that they can live with.
Yeah. So how much of those challenges that you're talking about, that 1.5x, you're saying budget 1.5 times what you think it's going to cost.
Yeah.
How much of that do you think stems from what John and I were talking about, which is the hype you get this hype of like, oh, it's a great product. Oh, it's going to be easy to use. Oh, easy to deploy.
Yeah, it's intuitive. Oh, we had no learning curve.
Right.
We don't have to have training for our employees.
Right.
It's just like they just have to sign on. And I think, there's a part of that with some of the advent of, generative AI and new UI that is true. And we heard, I was at
Hey, come on, Redwood, man. Redwood changes everything. You know that. I mean, you've been at this show for 2 days now.
That's right. That's right. Sprinkle redwood and it'll all be good. But the redwood looks amazing, and I actually did.
It does look really good. Let's be honest.
Yes, and customers, legitimately have said, I'm blown away by some of these capabilities that they are seeing, particularly with the AI. With that said, I think everybody has good intentions going in, but even customers, I think, have an unrealistic dream that they, or story that the narrative that they tell themselves that they can, get something up much quicker than is realistic. So it's not just vendors, and it's not Oracle. I mean, this is across the board in enterprise software. It's just, I think, again, adding that extra padding in, knowing that everybody is going to sort of have happy ears during the implementation, the partner selection and software selection process is probably a good rule of thumb.
Yeah. So, John, I'm trying to bridge the gap here between what Bonnie just said and what you and I sort of share a common concern with, which is we come to these conferences, we see the redwoods, we see the AI, the cool tools, the accelerators, all this stuff that's just going to make life amazing, the silver bullets, all that stuff. How do we bridge the gap between what the data is telling us, what you and I are feeling and seeing at these conferences, and if you put yourself in the mind of a customer that's about to invest a bunch of money in an ERP system, how do you sift through it? How do you sift through the madness and the propaganda?
Well, that's a really good question. I think that the thing that keeps me engaged is, while there is the cynicism, I do have a real sort of passion for what success looks like and what sort of transformation really feels like when it happens, right? Both, like, I guess, personally for teams and for organizations. And of course, that's really, really tough with very large organizations to see that collectively. But at least you can observe it in certain divisions under certain leadership and stuff like that. And I actually personally believe in that modern software is much more capable of value realization. I mean, when you and I first started this in the 90s, in like 97, I wrote a newsletter called XRP, Extending the Enterprise, and I wanted to break down enterprise walls and all that stuff. The technology just wasn't there to support that, let's face it. That was a friggin' pipe dream, right?
You were ahead of your time.
Well, not really, because it couldn't happen. It wasn't realistic. But the idea was cool, though, I thought, which was, why do we have this siloed, insular software? Like when we're trying to do business with people all over the world, customers, suppliers, why can't we connect the dots? And I think a lot of that can happen now. And so I think that's how I bridge the gap, is that I think there actually is a real transformation that can happen. And there are better ways to serve customers. You can do it better. And you know what? And it can actually be more fun to use the software too, and all that stuff. Like, I really believe that. And so I want to help more customers get on that path, but I do think it's hard. And one of my big things is it's not out of the box. You have to push for it. And it starts by understanding it better. Like yesterday I talked with a customer. I was like, what were your goals for your project? And they said, we wanted a real-time view of our enterprise. And I don't hear that from very many large enterprise customers. Like, a lot of times it's more about, we had legacy pain and we had 19 different warehouse management systems or whatever. But this whole like real-time view is like, you start to say, what does that mean for us? Like, what can we do with that? I think those are fascinating conversations. I don't know about you two. And so that's, if it was just me like getting frustrated and trying to debunk stuff, it wouldn't be enough. I have to believe in something, and I really do believe that modern software can deliver on that stuff if you do it right. It's just hard.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
And having realistic expectations too, like you were talking about, Bonnie, just knowing, what exactly it's going to take to get through a project. Is it 1 or is it 1.5 times what you think it's going to be? And just, if you have the realistic expectation, you can still be aggressive in how you manage that project, but it also puts you in a position where you don't have to make bad decisions later on because you're trying to cut scope or cut budget to fit within it. So just sort of as a closeout here, in sort of an call to action, how do customers, what are some data sources, or how could people learn from some of the data you collect? Like, I know you publish a lot of stuff and reports and things like that talk about different partners and how they fare compared to other partners. What are some of the things that people should be looking at, and where can they find this data?
Yeah, ravenintel.com. Our research and reviews are free and open to anybody to read. And we're actually producing a report at this show. It's a buyer's guide. Again, free for customers to have a step-by-step. Here's things to consider, questions to ask to really set themselves up for success. So visit Raven Intel for all of that.
Okay.
Great research.
You can download that all on your website, all the reports you put out, not just for Oracle, by the way. You're doing it for SAP, SuccessFactors, other
That's right.
systems.
UKG, Dayforce, SAP SuccessFactors, Workday, exactly. So each one has their own buyer's guide.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. And then John, Bonnie's covered the quantitative side of things. She's been the objective one here today, more than you and I probably. But what about you? You provide a really unique, what I would call dose of reality to the industry, and the stuff you write and that your colleagues at Diginomica write about, I think, is a very good qualitative source to really go in with a skeptic's eye toward, I'm about to invest in a bunch of money in this project. What do I really need to know? What's really going on behind the scenes? And you're really good at, I think, laying out the pros and the cons of just different aspects of digital transformation. What would you recommend? Like, what should people look for on the Diginomica sites? How should they follow you? How should they engage with your content to get some of that skeptic feedback?
Well, just head over to the website and start to get to know. I think our writers have a lot of different perspectives, so not everyone does it the same way on our site, but have a look. And we really try to be use case driven, so we try to document customer use cases. I think that's one reason why all of us get along, is because that's sort of the bedrock of what we're trying to do in different ways. And so, look for those stories, and you can subscribe and connect with those of us that that resonate with you. And that's a lot of what I'm trying to do, is to document that and look at what the keys to success were and what the pitfalls were. And so it's just as simple as that. It never gets old. I mean, every time you sit in front of a customer is just a great time. And I had some great discussions this week, so you can expect some write-ups. I've got another one coming tomorrow. So
perfect.
Yep.
Well, if you check the links below, you'll find links to Raven Intel, to Diginomica. I'll also include a link to our annual digital transformation report. I encourage you to check out any or all three of those sources that you can find on those websites. But I want to thank you guys for being here today. Thanks, Bonnie. Appreciate it. It's good seeing you. It's good seeing you as always. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Hope that you found this helpful, and I hope you have a great day.